Hello everyone, this is Void Spirit. I'm here to bring you guys amazing fanfiction that you will surely enjoy. But before we start, please subscribe and like the video for more amazing content.
CH-52. The Battle for Howard. It was today that the battle for the capital of the Haihiri Kingdom would take place. The battle in which gods and demons would fight. The battle to protect Howard City and everyone living in it. Looking at the mountain and waiting for his enemy to appear. That was what Akame was doing at the moment. She stared at the bright light on the mountain, but her mind was immersed in thought and her gaze did not focus well. Akame-san, is everything okay? Chloe asked worriedly. Yes, everything is fine. Of course she was going to ask that. Akame thought. Akame had only spent a few days with Rimuru and the group, but in this short time she learned a lot about them. Akame was not much a talker, so she often paid attention to others. So she was able to understand the personalities of the group members in a short time. Yu was cold, but with Hajime and the other members of the group she was kind. She didn't care about things like justice and put Hajime above all else. Tio looked like a mere pervert on the outside, but she was actually wise and sensible. She seemed to care about people, but she also put Hajime's will first. Sakura was cold on the outside, except with Rimuru and Chloe. However, she cared about the other members of the group as well, even if she didn't show it. She had a great sense of justice, but Rimuru came first. Kaori was kind and gentle with everyone. She quarreled with Yu, but it was not a bad relationship. Even though Kaori cared more for Hajime, she would still be reluctant to do things she didn't think were right. Shia was one of the kindest and gentlest people Akame had ever seen, but she was also a bit naive. Which was normal given her age. She also followed Hajime. Chloe was kind, fair, loving, and cared about others. She lived up to her title of hero. Yet she was not naive and had 2,000 years of experience. Her love for Rimuru was really strong and she always trusted him with decisions. Hajime was rude to anyone, and to his enemies he was cold and ruthless. He had no sense of justice, but he had his values. The way he saw the world was a bit radical, but Akame didn't feel entitled to judge him, because she herself was once like that. Maybe one day she would talk to him about it, but for now Hajime hated her. Seal was strange. Akame was surprised to learn that she was an ability that developed personality, but she thought that explained a lot. All that mattered to her was Rimuru's happiness, nothing else. It was total devotion. And the person who intrigued Akame the most. Rimuru. Rimuru was the one Akame talked to the most, as he was training her to use her Goddess of Rod Akli's ability, and the two of them had many opportunities to talk. Akame saw Rimuru's gentle personality, but also realized that he had no mercy on his enemies. If Chloe had not noticed Akame's hesitation in attacking Hajime, Rimuru would have killed her without hesitation. Upon hearing this, Akame wanted to know more about Rimuru. Rimuru told her several stories about himself and Akame was impressed. He was someone who was kind, but who did not hesitate to kill. He put the welfare of Chloe, Sakura and Seal above others, but that didn't mean he didn't care about them, quite the opposite. Rimuru held a power that could only be considered absolute, but he had no great ambitions. When Akame asked him his goals, he said, "I want to find someone, after that I want to protect my country and stay with Chloe, Sakura and Seal-san. However, my country doesn't need me at the moment, so I just want to live with them." He really is someone unusual. That was Akame's sincere thought. Someone who has decimated armies and overthrown governments, to have such a simple goal and be able to smile so sincerely. It reminded her very much of her former companions, several of whom were always smiling. Akame felt a tightness in her chest as she remembered Rimuru's smile. He is like. No, I don't think so. Akame couldn't help but compare Rimuru to a certain person from his past. However, the memory of this person was sacred to Akame and should not be touched. Akame just looked at the light again and waited again. "I think they've arrived," Hajime commented as he saw the light grow stronger. Chloe pulled out her thin sword, Hajime pulled out his pistols and Akame pulled out her katana. The light shone stronger and a small portal appeared. From this portal god apostles began to come out as if they were cockroaches. The group's eyes widened as they saw the large number of enemies, but none of them cowered. Chloe used magical perception to get a look at the enemy army. About 10,000 apostles and that guy. Maybe a general. Chloe couldn't guess his true identity, but this man was much stronger than the apostles. He had golden armor covering his entire body, a giant axe in his hands, and metal wings. The man was staring at the three of them, but his expression was not visible because of his helmet. Chloe was about to say that she would face the man, but then her magical perception detected two more people. One of them was a pointy-eared goblin fully covered by golden armor. He had a silver dagger in his hand. The other was a 20-foot-tall man without any armor. His clothes resembled a karate kimono. He was bald and had tanned skin. Chloe had a power measuring device that Rimuru gave her. This device could only measure the amount of magic a person had, not their actual strength. For example, Hekuro today has a magic amount of 100,000, but can fight people much stronger. Chloe used the device on the three people in the army. The apostles had an existence power, EP, of 0.20000. This classified them as A. They were comparable to superior demons, demons from Rimuru's world. It was not a threat, but here they were in great numbers. The man in armor had 2 million EP. That was considered an S rank. His magic amount equaled that of an awakened demon lord like Gabel or Geld. The goblin in armor had 1.500.000 EP, a high value, but not S, he was special A. It was the giant that scared Chloe. 5.300.000 EP. That was an SS class. 5 million EP would be comparable to some of Rimuru's strongest subordinates like Testarossa and Ultima. Diablo, Zej and Benimaru were also SS class, but their strength was on another level. Chloe quickly shared the information with Akame and Hajime. I'm going to take on that big guy. Akame said as she listened. Akame-san, are you sure you can do this? Chloe was worried as Akame's EP was 4 million, only, but Akame confidently agreed. Chloe decided to trust her. Okay, one of us needs to hold the army and the other needs to fight those two. Chloe said, directing herself towards Hajime. I think you should take care of the army, while Hajime-kun, hold those two. Even if you don't beat them, you just need to buy time until I arrive. I think that's a good idea. Hajime agreed easily. Normally it would be better for him to take on the army, since Hajime still didn't have full control over his new power and he could also use the spirit-possessed Golans to help. However, Hajime had handed over all the Golans to Yu, to help with comfort against the demon race army. Okay, go. Everyone went to face their respective enemies. Yu, Shia and Sakura were in charge of facing the demon army. First they took Lily and Kaori to the royal palace so they could warn the students, and then they headed toward the army. 100,000 demons were here. None of them spotted a general or anything. Yu wanted to find Freed and beat him up for trying to kill Hajime, but that could wait. First they had to find the generals and decide what to do about the other 900,000 who were not yet here. They were not sure that they could defeat almost 1 million opponents. In fact, they were not at all confident of doing so. After they discovered a plan, Yu was the first to move. She commanded all the legions of Golans that Hajime gave her to fight the army. Here they had Golans of fire, water, lightning, earth, wind, light and dark. If you counted them all, there would be 140 Golans. They would be quite useful. The demons and the magical beasts were frightened to be attacked by metal creatures with elemental powers. Shia was the next to move. She needed to find the magic space movement circles and destroy them. So she would not help in the battle. Sakura opened her large butterfly wings and flew over the army. They had some demons mounted on wyverns that tried to attack her, but they were killed. Sakura looked at the army below and uttered, "Flowers of despair." Immediately countless pink flowers began to fall over the battlefield. These flowers were falling slowly and confused all the soldiers. This was not a battlefield thing. All the barriers had already been destroyed, so the soldiers kept moving forward and ignored the flowers. Oh, what a mistake. Sakura snapped her fingers. KABOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOM. All the flowers generated huge explosions of colored fire. The screams were audible on the battlefield, and with that alone 5,000 demons died. Attack that woman. A man of the demon race ordered an attack on Sakura. This man was Mikhail, husband of the woman Hajime killed in Orcus and one of the demon lords of this world. Here with him were also 5 other demon lords. Several members of the army stood at the woman with butterfly wings hovering up there. However, it was a mistake for Mikhail to shout an order like this, because. So you are the leader. I found you. K.H. Mikhail, who was mounted on a wyvern, had almost no time to react. Several wind blades were thrown and hit him, causing him to be wounded. Who? He looked at his attacker. A beautiful girl with blonde hair and scarlet eyes. Her skin was pale and her gaze was deadly. I am your executioner. You replied and raised her hand. Blue dragon, she declared and cast her spell that fused fire and gravity. A ball of blue fire appeared in front of her. The fire took the form of a dragon-headed snake and headed towards the demon lords who were mounted on their wyverns. Dodge it. Stay away from that. Mikhail ordered, but there was no way to follow his orders. Both they and the wyverns were being pulled into the dragon's mouth. Ah! Help! Help me! Ah! Everyone died. The dragon didn't stop and killed 5,000 more soldiers. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot dot dot. Sakura was preparing a new spell. She was on the ground while preparing it, and it would take a while to get ready, but it would be worth it. Ha ha. There's a woman who dared to attack us. 3 men appeared in front of her. They appeared to be demon lords, but they were no threat to Sakura, so she just continued her spell and stared at them. Tisk, are you going to ignore us? Maybe your death won't be quick. Gayahe, we'll guarantee a very painful death. That filthy monster. Let's kill it soon. Sakura hadn't said anything yet, but a smile had formed on her lips. If anyone who knew Sakura were here, they would feel sorry for these men. Sakura finally opened her mouth to speak. You guys are army commanders, right? Of course we are, you idiot. We're the great demon lords. Why? Were you scared? Guahaha. To the arrogant men, Sakura just smiled and said, shouldn't you guys take better care of your army then? Huh. The 3 looked at the battlefield with confused looks. Everything seemed normal, but then a large plant began to grow next to the army. The plant was about 40 meters tall and drew stares from every soldier there. The plant grew bigger. Its handle was green and its main part was red and rounded. This part had some small white petals on the, wait for it. They were not petals, they were teeth. It was a giant carnivorous plant. A toxic gas was coming out of its mouth. The carnivorous plant opened its mouth and showed its big teeth. Roar! Each soldier froze at the sight of the plant's roar. That was the magic that Sakura called Devourer. The plant roared once again and ran to attack the army. Wuaaaaaaaa. Run. Ah. Stay away. Someone me. Ah. The carnivorous plant stretched its handle at will and there was no escaping it. It would pass by and devour rows of soldiers and magical beasts. The plant also left a toxic gas where it passed. This gas, if breathed in, would paralyze the lungs and kill instantly. You should be more careful with your enemies. Not one of you is going to get out of here alive to put my advice into practice. Quote. The demon lords were visibly trembling. Sakura pulled out her pink katana and stepped forward. Sak. Don't come near me. Stay away. Stay right there. If not Uek. The second to speak had his head cut off in the blink of an eye. The other 2 were horrified to see this and fell to the ground. Sakura was too fast for them to keep up. Please spare me. One of them knelt down and begged for mercy. Sakura approached and said, you're the one who said I would die a painful death, right? Aye. Lucky for you I'm not as rotten as you are. The man was relieved as he thought he would be spared. Then die quickly. Sakura cut the kneeling man in half. The other tried to run, only to have his throat slit by her. Shia searched for quite a while, but she finally found the magical circle of space movement. Half a kilometer away from the battlefield, there were several people of the demon race there protecting a magic circle. It was here. Hi guys, Deizu. she greeted as she arrived. Who are you? A man in yellow armor stood dumbfounded. Stand aside, filthy creature. A woman in red armor pointed a spear. Look, I've come to destroy the. Shut up. God-forsaken creatures like you have no right to talk to us. Another man spoke up. By now all 20 soldiers of the demon race had surrounded Xia. Xia sighed. She wanted to offer surrender, but they wouldn't listen. She decided to try to speak one more time. However, if they didn't listen, she would go up. Xia couldn't risk the rest of the army coming. I'm just talking. Surrender or stand still and die. The woman in red tried to push her away with her spear, but Xia easily deflected. If that's the way you want it. Xia pulled Doryukin away. What the man couldn't finish speaking as he was crushed by Xia's sledgehammer. The others were visibly startled by this. Daya. Xia spun Doryukin horizontally and killed 5 of them. The others realized that Xia was responsible and pulled out their weapons. Yeah. 3 more died. Die. One of them tried to attack Xia from behind, but was kicked several meters away. He couldn't take the impact and died. Get away from me. The man in yellow tried to dodge, but Xia smashed his head. Die in the name of God. A man in black armor tried to kill her with a halberd, but Xia just turned his hammer one more time. Xia easily killed the others, and when only one man was left, he was terrified. Mo monster. He. Thanks for the compliment, Dazu. Xia crushed her head. She was happy to be called a monster as it indicated that she was closer to the other members of the group who were called that. Xia destroyed the space movement magic circle and returned to the battlefield. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot dot dot. You received word from Xia that the magic circle had been destroyed. She saw the giant plant engulfing the army and smiled. Sakura seems to be enjoying herself. Well, let's hurry things along. You raised her hand and summoned her new magic. The most powerful destruction magic she could make. 5 elemental dragons. The clouds opened up. Out of it came 5 eastern dragons. 1 of water, 1 of fire, 1 of wind, 1 of earth and 1 of lightning. The dragons roared and attacked the last soldiers of the army. Chloe was fighting an army of 10,000. This was not easy for her as the apostles were not an opponent to be trifled with. On top of that, she couldn't use her abilities to manipulate time, so this made things much worse. Chloe had already killed 1,000 apostles, and as she battled, she watched the battles of Akame and Hajime. Akame seemed evenly matched with her opponent, but Hajime seemed at a disadvantage. This was normal, as his opponents had a similar amount of magic as his, and Hajime had not learned to control his power well. In fact, Hajime deserved praise for being alive. The probable cause was that he activated Limit Break, and in addition Hajime had his artifacts. That's not good. Chloe couldn't help but speak up. Chloe was better at one-on-one battles, and that's why it took her a minute to kill 1,000 of the apostles. Not only that, but something was happening now. The apostles' bodies were surrounded by a thin membrane that glowed white. This membrane was made of sacred energy and seemed to strengthen them. If they got stronger, it would take Chloe longer to beat them, and Hajime's limit break would end. Chloe didn't know the time limit, but she didn't want to bet on luck. Chloe used her detection skills to figure out who this strengthening spell was coming from. She was surprised to find that it was coming from the headquarters of the church on God's Mountain. It was too far for her to go. If she simply went there, the apostles would take the opportunity and attack Hajime and Akame. So Chloe decided to ask Tio for help. Oh, Tio-san, is everything okay? Aiko was flying on Tio's back and asked when she suddenly stopped. Gushin-sama and the girls are in trouble. From the looks of it, the church members are strengthening the heavenly army. What? But that's... Aiko was going to ask why, but she knew. The members really thought it was God who sent the army and would gladly help them. So after I put Gushin-sama's sensei in a safe place, I will go there and destroy them. Wait, Tio-san. It will take time for you to come down and come back here, right? I'll go along. But Gushin-sama said. Tio gave up arguing when he saw Aiko's determined look. Okay, then let's go. Tio flew at high speed to the church headquarters. It didn't take long for her to arrive. Satio already arrived and launched a blast of black fire. Barrier. I guess so. It must be several barriers or my breath should have worked. Tio and Aiko were thoughtful, and after a while Aiko had an idea. She was going to use her fermentation magic and release several flammable gases into the church. The barrier would not block as it would not consider something hostile, and then Tio would use her breath again. Kaboom! It worked well. A gigantic explosion happened and all the church members burned to death. Aiko was happy to have helped, but soon after the regret of having killed someone came over her and she threw up. Fortunately she didn't throw up behind Tio's back. After that the two decided to join Kaori and the students. Filled circle, filled circle, filled circle. Yay! Chloe celebrated internally as she saw the church being blown up. Normally celebrating seeing a church being destroyed would only be the act of a terrorist, but let's leave that aside. Now that the apostles were no longer strong, Chloe decided to give it her all. She would use all her strength to kill her enemies. Chloe went full force. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot dot dot. It was useless. That was Chloe's only thought. She went full force and in 3 minutes destroyed the apostles' army, but it was useless. Right after Chloe killed all the apostles, a white portal opened again. However, this portal was larger than the other one. Not only that, but the portal released an army of 100,000 apostles and 3 more generals with a count of EP 2 million. This army was not visible from the city because of the gigantic size of the mountain of God, but if it were the inhabitants would surely have strong reactions. This army was very powerful. Chloe could defeat them all, but that would take time and by then Hajime would be dead. Not only that, but Chloe was no longer able to see the battle from Akame, so she might be in danger. Unfortunately now the only hope was for Rimuru to finish his battle quickly and come to her aid. The chances of Rimuru coming to her aid now were very low, but it didn't matter. Chloe would never give up hope, especially if it was about trusting Rimuru. Chop readied her sword once more. She would fight this army until Rimuru came. That was her only chance. Or so Chloe thought. What? Both Chloe and her enemies were surprised. That was because a large ring of black smoke had formed around the army. This dense smoke that you couldn't see anything inside confused everyone. A smoke that gave off a bad feeling, a bad omen. Gaya hey 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 hey. Hoo 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 hoo. Evil laughter began to come out of the smoke. These laughter would make anyone sound cold, but it wasn't just the laughter. A huge pressure was coming out of the smoke. Foo 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 foo. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha hey 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 hey. More and more laughter was heard and the evil feeling got worse and worse. Red lights flashed in the smoke and after a few seconds Chloe could see silhouettes there. Finally 3 figures came out of the smoke. These female figures that exuded tyrannical power had beautiful faces, and on these faces were smiles. One of the women had white hair and clothes, the other had black clothes and purple hair, and the last one wore a coat and had bright blonde hair. The 3 of them walked over to Chloe. Chloe-sama, allow us to help. They spoke happily and knelt down. The only people who called Chloe in such a respectful way were the subordinates of their beloved. And only those who knew about his marriage, not yet publicized. Now Chloe knew very well who the people hiding in the smoke were. Members of the upper echelons of Tempest. Originated from the underworld. Those who spread fear across the multiverse. The most powerful squad in Tempest. Led by 4 of the primordial demons. Rimuru's personal squad. The smoke cleared revealed them. The black numbers are at your disposal. Testarossa said loudly and all the demons smiled. Thinking of the massacre to come. Ch 53. Demons vs. Gods. Hajime was screwed. Today Hajime learned an important lesson. He realized that he should have paid attention to his brother's phrase, ultimate skills have an advantage over other skills. This was proven given the battle Hajime was having right now. Hajime was fighting against 2 members of the Heavenly Army, but in the first minute of the fight he was already forced to activate the limit break. This made his battle even, but Hajime's time was running out. Hajime was able to use his acceleration skill to increase his time. He did this by slowing down the speed at which his body was affected. 5 minutes had already passed, and Hajime didn't know how much longer this would last. He was using every skill, spell and artifact available, but still Hajime couldn't beat these guys. Both of them were wearing full armor. The little one with the pointed ears was called Schmied. He focused more on attacking Hajime and always used speed moves. Whenever Hajime tried to attack him, the other guy, Big Gorse, stayed in front. Gorev had super defensive armor, so Hajime couldn't penetrate his defenses without just focusing on him. Only if Hajime focused on him, he would be attacked by Schmied. Hajime could beat these guys if not for the previously mentioned ultimate skills. These two were confident enough to tell Hajime about their abilities. Schmied had the King of Hercules victory, an ability that Hajime didn't know what it did, but it looked dangerous. Gorev had the King of Resistance Achilles, which seemed to be an endurance skill. Hajime actually came up with a theory about this skill, but he couldn't rely too much on a theory that was based only on the name of the skill. Hey, that's so unfair. Hajime couldn't help but laugh at himself. He had already been pretty pissed off when he lost to Akame and he didn't want to lose here. Hey, that's because you're weak. Schmied said and set off on Hajime with 2 silver daggers. Die. Hajime fired several times with Donner and Schlag. All the shots were strengthened by the heat, skill and all were precisely aimed, but Schmied was not hit. That was because Gorev put his gigantic sword in front of him. The shots did not pass through the sword. Don't think you can defeat us, brat. It's about time you died. His voice was thick and an intimidating air began to come out of him, but Hajime was not shaken. He looked up and I see Chloe fighting an army of 10,000. If she can do that, I can beat these two guys. Hajime thought and decided to give it his all. He was going to beat these guys. For ISS, Hajime decided to use all his trumps. Accelerate. Hajime began to move faster. He was increasing his own speed, but he was also going to make the time limit of the limit break, so Hajime only used this now. Ha. Finally going to get serious, huh. He'll never beat us. I don't know why huh. Gorev was thrown far away and hit a hill. He was surprised by the speed of Hajime's kick and even hurt himself a little. Don't let your guard down. Schmied attacked Hajime from behind, only to be surprised to see that Hajime was not there. There was only a maneki that looked like Hajime and in his mouth was a light grenade. Shit. Schmied tried to cover his eyes but couldn't. He was stunned. That was one of Hajime's traps. Mild waved his hands and attacked the air while trying to regain his vision. Die. He used several fireballs in various directions. Even though Schmied was blind, he was very good with his hearing, so 2 of the fireballs went in Hajime's direction. Magic Canceller. Those fireballs were strong, so Hajime had to use a magic cancelling weapon. Gorev had already stood up and ran up to Hajime. He made a horizontal slash, but was surprised when he saw Hajime behind him. It was an impressive speed. It has to work. It has to work. Hajime twisted internally as he pulled out his new weapon. At the angle Hajime was at, it would accept both of them. Hyperion. A cannon of light shot out. The white light covered the 2 enemies and they widened their eyes in surprise. Hajime immediately deactivated, accelerate. If that didn't work, his best choice was to buy time. After a while the light disappeared and revealed the state of the 2 enemies. Gorev was lying on the ground, his armor was glowing and slowly turning to dust. This probably meant that he was dying. Schmied, however, was with his 2 daggers in hand casting a murderous glare at Hajime. You bastard. You killed Gorev-san. I'm going to kill you. Schmied had survived. The truth was that his supreme ability meant that Schmied could once a day manipulate reality so that he had not lost the fight. That was how he survived Hajime's attack. Gorev, however, did not. Gorev's ability greatly increased his defenses, but it had a weak point, literally. Gorev had to pick a spot on his body and if this spot was attacked, it would mean death. It is not known where this spot was, but since the Hyperion hit his entire body, Gorev cannot escape. I think it will be hard to win now. If Schmied survived the last attack, there wasn't much Hajime could do. He would have to buy time and wait for help, even though he didn't like that. Just as Schmid was about to attack. I recommend that you don't move. KH. A boy who with gray hair stopped in front of Schmid. This boy might have been in 6th grade by his age, but both Hajime and Schmid knew that he was no ordinary person. The pressure that this boy emanated was at the same heights or even higher than Schmid's. Not only that, but he was passing through a lot of things. Not only that, but he had an evil feeling about him that made Hajime and Schmid break out in a cold sweat. At first glance one could tell that the boy had his guard down, hands in his pockets and a disinterested look on his face. However, Hajime and Schmid could tell that this boy had great battle experience. It was true, after all this was Mas, a prehistoric demon who had battled for thousands of years. Mas turned to Hajime, who put himself on guard at the same time. Are you Hajime Nagumo? Quote. Yes. Hajime felt he had no advantage in lying here. When Hajime answered, Mas quickly approached. Hajime thought he was going to be attacked, but quite the opposite. Mas knelt down in front of him. It's an honor to meet you. The brother of our great master, Rimuru-sama. To be in his presence is honorable. Hajime thought this boy was quite strange, but then he remembered when Rimuru complained that some of his subordinates were extremely respectful and that was a bit bothersome. You are my brother's subordinate. I see. Yes, Hajime Dono. Should I get rid of that nuisance? Mas pointed at Schmid who was still wanting to fight. Ah, yes, but that guy is no joke. Are you sure that? Before Hajime could finish, Mas attacked. Mas didn't even use weapons. He just went at Schmid with his bare hands. Schmid tried to give a vertical cut with one of his daggers, but Mas caught his wrist and crushed it. Schmid gave a groan of pain, but kept fighting. Schmid attacked Mas with his other dagger, but Mas caught the dagger that had just fallen and defended easily. Schmid tried a kick, only to be defended by the clone Mas had made earlier. Schmid didn't even have time to be surprised as Mas kicked over and crushed his skull. Clearly he had not forgotten to suck out his soul to give as a gift to his master Testarossa later. Really? How absurd is this guy? Hajime complained internally. But it was true, Mas was absurd. Besides the primordials there were few demons that could face him. Before maybe Schmid had an advantage because of his supreme skill, but a few years ago Mas had acquired Infernal Commander Malik, which was also a supreme skill. That added to his strength and great combat experience made the fight against Schmid easy. Hajime just sat on the ground to rest. What a boring battle. Akame was lounging against this giant man called Heller, and it was being very time-consuming. The man had more power than Akame, but in contrast he only had one supreme skill, while Akame had his superior skill. However, Akame didn't know how to control this ability properly. Akame honestly thought it was a waste to have such a skill and not be able to control it. Rimuru told her about how rare and how powerful these skills were if masterfully controlled, so Akame was working hard on her training. Only she didn't have much time for training yet, so it was difficult to enjoy her full power. Heller was using a big black sword and his strength was tremendous. Akame used his poisoned katana, which one strike would kill its target. Or at least that is how it should be. In his world Akame always fought against humans, but this guy had a peculiarity. Whenever Akame hit a cut, before his poison could spread, the part that was hit would separate from Heller's body and he would regenerate. That was the difference in fighting with non-humans. After seeing that it would be difficult to kill him with poison, Akame remembered a conversation he had with Rimuru. Ha, it's no use. No matter how hard I try, I can't. Akame was trying to use her superior ability, but she couldn't. In the end the only thing that happened was she spent magic power and got tired. Akame and Rimuru were at a training camp. The method they were using to help Akame control her ability, Goddess of Rot Akles, was suggested by Seal. There was an apple on a table and Akame had to use her ability to make it rot. This was the focus of his skill, aging. Even Seal cannot predict how high this ability could go, but his focus was on making things age. For example, the poison Akame uses on his sword, This poison ages the target's veins to the extreme and kills him. However, Akame can only use the poison if he is with his katana, Murasama, as this katana amplifies his powers. Come on, Akame-san. Just be persistent. Rimuru tried to cheer her up. That way the apple will rot by itself. Akame can't help but think, but Rimuru was helping her, so she wasn't going to complain to him. Okay, let's try again. Akame agreed. Rimuru transferred magic energy to Akame and she stood up to try again. Akame held out her hand toward the apple. She stared at the apple as she tried to use her ability. A while passed and nothing. The apple remained full of life. Tisk. Akame clicked her tongue in disgust. Rimuru put his hand on his chin thoughtfully. He asked Seal for some tips, but got nothing. So he decided to do something for himself. Try one more time. Rimuru spoke and stood up from his stool. Akame once again held out his hand for the apple. After looking at it for a while, Rimuru approached from behind and placed his hand over hers. What are you doing? Akame asked, irritated. She was seriously considering pushing him away. Calm down. I'm just trying to help. Rimuru said in a calm tone, and Akame did not push him away. She stared at his hand. Look, the abilities come from your will. You won't succeed if you just focus on the apple. My will. Yes, close your eyes. Akame closed his eyes and Rimuru kept his hands together. Okay, I will move the apple and you will rot it. But, how am I going to do that if I won't even know where it is? Rimuru used a percent magic and moved the apple. Akame didn't know where it was, so she didn't think it would work. Calm down. Rimuru said in a low voice. Take a deep breath. Akame took a deep breath and calmed down a little. She still had her hand raised. Now think about the apple. Don't think of just any apple. Think of the apple you saw before. Quote. Imagine your will. You take the apple in your hand and make it rot with the power of your will. It's not the skill that's doing it, it's you. Rimuru's calm voice made Akame more relaxed. Akame could feel the magic power coursing through her body and also her ability. I know it's hard to understand. It's not easy to explain either. You have to feel it. Just as Rimuru said, Akame felt the power. Power of will and of her ability. She used those powers and opened her eyes. Only to see a rotten apple floating in front of her. Wow, very good. I think that's enough for today, we'll practice some more tomorrow. Rimuru let go of Akame's hand and the two left the training ground. Shortly after they left. Rimuru. Quote. Thank you. You're welcome. It was a training session first of all. I have to help you. He said, smiling. Seeing that smile, for just a moment, Akame felt a tightness in her chest. If I want to defeat this guy, the first need to use my skill. Akame knew this. She tried several other ways to kill him, but it didn't work. It had been a long time since they had been fighting and they both lost a lot of magical power. Akame lost magical power by recreating the poison in her sword and also to improve her speed. Heller spent magic power to regenerate himself every time he was cut by Akame. It was a stalemate and so Akame was going to use his ability, even though he didn't control it well. What is? Heller looked off in the distance with an incredulous expression. Akame was curious as well since the two hadn't exchanged many words during the fight, so it was strange for him to speak. Akame looked in the same direction and saw a shower of blood. Several people with colored hair slaughtering the apostles of God. Something was going on and it was better to end this battle as quickly as possible. That thought came to Heller's mind too late. Rot. Akame had taken advantage of his distraction and managed to rot Heller's body into nothing more than a skeleton. I have to see what is happening there. Akame headed toward the battle. Going back a bit. The black numbers were here. Chloe didn't know how, but she knew who brought them. It was the person she always trusts. She knew he would come to our rescue. Even though it wasn't directly. Chloe had no doubt that it was indeed Testarossa, Ulitma and Carrera in front of her. She didn't think it could be an illusion as the girls, demons, treated her super respectfully. Few people treated her like this and most were those who knew about her relationship with Rimuru. Chloe and Rimuru's engagement had not yet been publicized, so few people knew about it. Obviously Tempest's strongest squad knew. All the demons were silently waiting for Chloe's orders. Okay, first, Testarossa-kun, can you send someone to help that white-haired boy? Chloe said and pointed at Hajime's battle. Obviously. Could I know his identity? Testarossa asked with a smile. He is Rimuru-san's brother. His name is Hajime. Chloe said carelessly. She should have thought better before speaking. Hugh. What? That's. Not only Testarossa, Ulitma and Carrera, but all the other demons who heard this froze in place. Wonderful. Testarossa said contentedly. I agree. Being able to meet Rimuru-sama's brother is amazing. Ultima jumped for joy. No need to worry, Chloe-sama. I myself will destroy those idiots who dared to go against him. Carrera said and stepped forward, but Testarossa stopped her by putting her arm in front of her. Carrera, I know what you think, but those guys are too weak. It would be unfair to send you. Yes. That's why my subordinates will help. Veyron. Ultima tried to send his subordinate. However, Testarossa and Carrera wanted the same thing and it turned into a fight. The discussion about who would help Hajime became so important that the army was completely forgotten. However, the army didn't dare attack, because even though there were 100,000 against 900, the difference in power was unknown. The enemy generals were talking among themselves. Incidentally, the platoon numbers increased a few years ago because of a certain event. Before there were 700. Moss, Cian, Veyron, Zonda, Agera and Spirit had 100 subordinates each. Of course these were subordinates of Testarossa, Ulitma and Carrera. In addition you had Diablo's subordinate, Venom who also had 100 subordinates. The certain event that increased these numbers was the resurrection of two of Diablo's subordinates. These subordinates were archdemon who sacrificed themselves during Rimuru's transformation into a demon lord. They took a few years to be reborn and when they were reborn Diablo recruited them again. In addition Diablo discovered that they also had 100 subordinates each. Rimuru named them both and gave them bodies. One of them was short and had gray hair, this one Rimuru called Spider. The other was tall and had black hair, this Rimuru called Chiron. Spider had Agera's table strength and Chiron was a little weaker than Moss. These two were not here at the moment because they had gone to ensure that the army of the demon race did not invade the city. After a while of arguing, Chloe interfered and the three apologized. Chloe sent Moss to help Hajime. Okay, now we need to destroy the heavenly army. I will need your help. Certainly. Obviously no one objected. Testarossa formed a connection with all the demons so that everyone could hear her. Carrera and Ultima did the same. Then all three declared in unison, kill them all. The demons gladly carried out the order. And so an extremely one-sided confrontation began. The demons killed their enemies with elegant and refined movements. The apostles on the other hand attempted desperate suicide attacks. The enemy generals were destroyed in a matter of seconds. There was no way they could win. Even the weakest black numbers soldiers were archdemons, and the most powerful were demon peers without the demonic race limiter. Besides, the demons fought with pleasure. Tempest was in times of peace, so there was no need for the demons to fight, they just do some government jobs they were assigned to. However, they are not the least bit sad about this. After all it is a method of serving their master Rimuru. In addition, Rimuru, knowing how demons like to fight, has asked Romulus to make a new floor in the labyrinth just for this. Romulus before could not increase the size of the labyrinth, but every day she is getting stronger and getting closer to her adult form. So she was able to fulfill this request with ease. The real reason the demons are so happy is that they can destroy those who dare to get in their master's way. Chloe, Testarossa, Ultima and Carrera were not participating in the fight because they were saving their energy. This was because there was still a risk that after this army was destroyed, an even bigger one would appear like last time. They stood watching the battle. Diablo had been summoned by Rimuru. Diablo greeted him respectfully and Rimuru first asked him if there was something going on in Tempest and if it was okay to summon the black numbers. Diablo told him it was okay, so Rimuru did so. After that each was assigned to his task. Diablo's was to protect Rimuru's colleagues. Rimuru gave him permission to kill. Diablo didn't see why he should do this as the students were well away from the battlefield and from the information Seal provided, there were few people who could hurt them in this world. To his surprise when Diablo arrived he saw that the students were indeed in danger. It is simply wonderful. Rimuru-sama foresaw this too. Kufufu, I have to get better. Diablo laughed internally. Not only were the classmates in danger but one of Rimuru's teammates was in danger as well. Diablo was impressed that Rimuru had foreseen this. Actually Rimuru didn't see it coming at all. First Diablo effortlessly healed Kuki who was poisoned, without him even noticing. Then he kept watching how things would develop to make sure that the enemy was not hiding anything. Diablo only went to interfere when Kaori was in fatal danger. Obviously nobody there knew that. Everyone was just wondering, who is he? And why does he give off this feeling of death? Eri and Fried were the most afraid. This was because Diablo had just saved Kaori, which meant that he was sure to be someone hostile. How can there be such an existence? Who the hell is he? Eri was desperate. Fried too, he knew he had no chance with this guy. Fried couldn't even see Diablo move and couldn't analyze his strength either. Plus those golden eyes were giving him an eerie feeling. He had to get away from here and report this to his king. Fried ordered Uranus to take off, but he didn't obey. The reason was that Diablo was looking him straight in the eye. It was only for a second, but Uranus could feel Diablo's true strength. It was terrifying. There was no escape or fight possible. Only die. Fried used his magic to control Uranus and tried to whale flight. Oh, you think you can run away from me? KHH. Without being able to be seen, Diablo appeared on top of the dragon and held Fried by the neck. Mo monster. Fried tried to curse as he was hung. He, such an obsessed soul and at the same time so full of fear. This is going to be a great meal. Diablo said and finished with his usual laugh. Fried was confused upon hearing his words, but then he remembered something. It would have been better if he hadn't remembered. An ancient legend. A legend about spirits from the underworld itself that ate souls. These spirits were called demons. Fried's race was called this, thanks to this legend. Humans started to call them this to label everyone as evil. This is why many people think that demons are an evil race. Fried realized, his soul would be consumed and he would die. And no. His body went limp. He had his soul sucked out. Diablo smiled. This was an extremely frightening scene for everyone. Nobody dared to move a muscle. Actually someone tried. Kufufufu, trying to get a hidden hostage, aren't you? It's impressive that you have overcome your fear of me. Humans are so interesting. Diablo said this to Hayama who was still trying to approach Kaori, even though he was injured. Actually Hayama didn't want to take a hostage, he just wanted to have Kaori for himself. He was obsessed. It was also this obsession that made him overcome his fear of Diablo. Get out of the way. Hayama tried to attack Diablo who stood in the way, only to be met by elegant movements. Would you please stop attacking? I wouldn't want to hurt one of Rimuru-sama's colleagues. Diablo seemed to be enjoying the battle, but Hayama was giving it his all. He didn't stop attacking. I see. It's a shame. Diablo said and slashed Hayama's arm. He thought that by having his arm ripped off, Hayama would lose the will to fight. Demon. Hayama took time to realize the reality. His arm had been cut off. Kufufufufufufufu. That's correct. It was just an insult from Hayama, but it ended up hitting what Diablo was. Hayama was seriously considering surrendering. He was badly hurt and would die if he kept this up, but then he looked at Kaori behind Diablo who was wearing a dumbfounded expression. No. Kaori needs to be mine. He recovered from his fear using madness. Even though his arm was bleeding badly, he still walked towards Kaori and ignored Diablo beside him. He shouldn't have done that. Diablo cut off his head. He had not forgotten to save Hayama's soul in case Rimuru wanted to see him again, but that was not going to happen. All the students saw their classmate beheaded in front of them. Their minds were going to be shaken by this, but not now. They were still in a state of alertness and could not process this properly. Now all that's left is you. Eri shuddered. Stop. Either or I'll kill them. Eri threatened to kill her colleagues with the puppet soldiers. She heard Diablo say that she doesn't want to hurt them, so she decided to use them as hostages. All the puppet soldiers fell to the ground. Diablo sucked out their souls. Maybe that one over there can be saved. Well, it will depend on Rimuru-sama. Diablo said, pointing at Meld. Will you surrender or will you meet the same end as the other one? He asked as he approached Eri. Eri had no choice. She had to surrender. Even if she was caught, one day she would get kooky for herself. She said she would surrender and Diablo said, great choice. He put a mark on her that would make it impossible for her to use magic and made her pass out on the spot. Rimuru-sama will decide what to do with her. He turned to the students who were still frightened and bowed elegantly. It is a pleasure to meet you. I am Diablo, a servant of the great demon Lord Rimuru. Filled circle, filled circle, filled circle. That's strange. Hajime's murmur represented everyone's thoughts. After slaughtering the army, the demons went to introduce themselves to Hajime and Akame. Hajime was a little uncomfortable with the extreme respect they treated him, but he didn't complain. Realizing that no more armies would be coming to face them, they began to theorize about why the attack was happening. There was no reason for the gods to want the capital of the kingdom, so why did they use armies and several powerful people? They really sacrificed a lot in this battle. Even their leader, Velda, came to stop Rimuru from participating. What could they possibly want? Hajime and Akame commented. Ah. Akame understood. The others looked at her in confusion. If they didn't want the capital, then the only other thing they could want. Keep us busy, she said, and everyone began to understand. Velda didn't come to distract Rimuru from the main confrontation. The army came to distract us from the main confrontation. Their conclusion came too late. Velda's plan was already in place.